Paul's Alley Specialty. Paul's Alley Specialty.
Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to the kickoff for the 2016-17 Head of School Symposium. It's my pleasure to introduce the topic of this year's symposium. That's the Caribbean, or the Caribbean, Climate, Commerce and Culture. This year marks the 15th year of symposia at the Academy. And that's where I choose a topic within global education on which the entire school community can focus. I alternate each year between a topic and a geographical area. So most of you know, last year we did immigration, emigration and migration, a topic. So this led to choosing a geographical area for this year. And I selected the Caribbean as I felt it was part of the world that's very close to us and yet not well known or understood. It's unique, it's diverse, many countries, and an area of the world that's many lessons from its history, economy, society, politics, and culture for our community to learn. I wanted you to have the opportunity to learn about the area's struggle with colonization, imperialism, and independence. I wanted you to see the vibrancy of the Caribbean cultures with their array of local and European languages and arts. I wanted you to understand such topics as the history of Cuba, the challenges faced by Haiti after the earthquake and before, the challenging economics of the region, and the unusual importance and impact of tourism, and the constant medical threats, including the current challenge posed by the Zika virus. It's an area of the world that I wanted all of us to understand better through exploration, trips, speakers, movies, and study. It's an area of the world that I felt was too often relegated in our minds to a sunny tourist destination rather than an area with significant economic and political challenges, yet rich in history, language, culture, and potential. In the words of the author Malcolm Bradbury, said, "If Caribbean writers have one single unifying theme, it is a strong sense of place and of home. There is also, always beneath the humor, which is a West Indian characteristic, a sadness, an awareness of a past that can never really be forgotten or forgiven." And I think those are important words as we start this year. And so today you're going to get a further sense of the Caribbean through some videos from your fellow students, as well as some presentations from members of the Symposium Committee. You'll also learn more about the spring break trip and other speakers and activities planned for the year by the Head of School Symposium Committee, which is chaired and led by Mr. Copestake and Mr. Nink. And as ever with the symposium, I encourage you all to kind of watch, listen, and imagine and get involved in different ways during the year. So I hope everyone has a great symposium year, gets engaged in all of our programs. And I'm just going to conclude this kind of introduction on the Caribbean with the lyrics of somebody famous from the Caribbean, Bob Marley. He wrote in his song, "Life is one big road with lots of signs. So when you ride in through the ruts, don't complicate your mind. Flee from hate, mischief, and jealousy. Don't bury your thoughts. Put your vision to reality. Wake up and live. Wake up and live." I think pretty good words. So thank you. That's the introduction, and I think we're going to cue a video.
Introducing the 2016-17 Head of School Symposium, The Caribbean, Climate, Commerce, and Culture. The Caribbean is a desperate collection of peoples, languages, and cultures stretching over 1,000 miles from Guyana on the northeast hump of South America to the Bahamas off the coast of Florida. With 26 Caribbean islands, we will highlight a few today, and over the course of the year, you will learn more about this beautiful part of the world. Now we'll look at Cuba, Spanish-speaking and largest island of the Caribbean. It is culturally considered closer to Latin America. It is politically the longest-standing one-party republic under the Lenin-Marxist ideology.
Influential to the people of Haiti is its national motto, Liberté, Égalité et Fraternité. Remaining true to this, and despite devastating effects of a 2010 earthquake, Haiti continues to make great strides in rebuilding itself. It is the world's leading producer of vetiver, a root plant used to make luxury perfumes, essential oils, and fragrances, providing for half of the world's supply. Jamaica. Vacationers arriving to this island paradise are greeted by reef-like beaches, rainforests, and mountains as they enjoy the sounds of reggae music, made popular by its most well-known native Rastafari, Bob Marley.
Montserrat. Although a British Overseas Territory, BOT, it is nicknamed for the Emerald Island of the Caribbean due to its resemblance to Ireland and Irish ancestry. Known for its coral reefs and caves housing many species of bats, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Due to its volcanic rock, more than 95% of the beaches on the mainland have black sand, making it a perfect filming location for Johnny Depp's 2003 adventure fantasy movie, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Turks and Caicos Islands. Higher education is a priority in these islands. Once a student completes their education at the Turks and Caicos Islands Community College, they're allowed to further their education at a university in the US, Canada, or the UK at no additional cost.
Those were just a few highlighted Caribbean islands. Stay tuned for more.
Okay, so we're gonna start by talking about the Spanish Caribbean, which includes both the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. So we thought that we would start by defining the difference between a sovereign state and a territory. And basically a sovereign state is a state with borders and they have a government and the people there follow those laws, while a territory is under control of another ruler or state. So out of the three, both the Dominican Republic and Cuba have sovereignty, while Puerto Rico remains a U.S. territory. This means that all citizens born in Puerto Rico automatically are U.S. citizens.
We also wanted to talk about the arrival of the first African slaves, which was in 1518, brought over by Spanish Europeans, and they have a large impact on the culture, religion, and language and history today of the islands, as most of the culture that was brought over many, many years ago is still there today and is a large influence on everyone there.
So a little history about the three. In Cuba, the original inhabitants of Cuba were the Kibanri, and they were a part of people who speak Arawak. Christopher Columbus began to colonize Cuba in 1511 and established settlements such as Baracoa, Santiago de Cuba, and Havana. In Puerto Rico, indigenous people were Taino Indians who also spoke Arawak. Christopher Columbus landed in Puerto Rico in 1493, and he established schools in 1508. And last but not least, the Dominican Republic, the indigenous people were also Taino Indians, and Christopher Columbus landed there in 1492. So with that, we'd like to welcome the English Caribbean.
So we're going to be talking about the Anglophone Caribbean, which are the English-speaking countries in the Caribbean. So after the decline of the Spanish Empire, the British were quick to take their place and ended up colonizing a majority of the Caribbean subregion. Under British rule, tobacco and cotton were the Europeans' two most important sources of economic revenue up until the establishment of the sugar plantation system, which was introduced during the transatlantic slave trade. The Europeans had such a high demand for sugar that they looked for new sources of labor and turned to the importation of African people, sending them as slaves to work on sugar plantations in the Caribbean under inhumane working conditions. However, along with the eventual abolition of slavery during the 1830s, indentured servants from China and India migrated to major island nations such as Jamaica and Trinidad to pursue work on these sugar plantations. So overall, because of this huge mass migration of people, to this day, those same Caribbean countries have an overwhelmingly high amount of diversity in their societies.
Many of these islands have gained independence from England. The few listed above are still British dependents. One advantage they have is being connected with Britain's stable economy. Those that weren't suffered from the decline in the sugar industry in the 1980s. This loss of jobs resulted in a 20% unemployment rate, which would have been a lot higher had they not been able to go to places like England, the US, and Canada to find jobs. Now they're fairly dependent on the tourism industry to get much of their revenue. And that's it for English Caribbean. Next is French Caribbean.
Okay, so the French Caribbean consists of Haiti, Dominica, St. Lucia, and the French West Indies, and I'll be elaborating on the French West Indies. This includes the countries such as Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint-Barthélemy, Saint-Martin, and French Guinea. All of these countries are under French sovereignty. They have overseas departments and collectivities. The overseas departments are really looked after by France, while the collectivities tend to have more government on their own. The first French colony to be established was Saint-Pierre, which is located in Martinique, and this was done in 1635. Following this establishment, there's other permanent settlements established throughout the rest of Martinique and into Guadeloupe. The reason for these establishments was due to the sugarcane plantations that they found to bring a lot of revenue to France. If you visit the islands nowadays, they tend to predominantly speak French or French Creole. Creole is a combination of French, Spanish, as well as indigenous dialects. In March of 2015, the French culture class actually visited Guadeloupe, where we stayed with our host families there. We did some service work, we spent time in schools, and we also visited historical sites to learn about the culture and history of this island. The people there really consider themselves to have a French identity, even though they're not in mainland France. Their education system, language, and politics is the exact same, and many of them aspire to go back to France to further their education. One problem that you do run into with an island nation, however, is the minority versus the majority. And we found that although the minority of people on the island were white, they tended to have a lot more power than the majority who had mixed race heritage. And with that, I'd like to introduce the Dutch Caribbean.
Sorry. So the Dutch Caribbean is home to the islands of Aruba, Curacao, Saint Martin, Bonaire, Saint Eustatius, and Saba. These islands have kind of a rich and somewhat complicated history with the Kingdom of the Netherlands. They were originally conquered by the Dutch in the 17th century by the Dutch West India Company. And until 2010, they weren't officially autonomous ruling nations. Before, from 1958 to 2010, the Dutch islands were considered constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which meant they had their own limited self-control in government. Now, however, if you were to visit them, you'd find that it's a very beautiful, thriving countries, very, very warm because they're outside of the hurricane belt, which means that they experience very little rain throughout the year. But unfortunately, the Dutch islands, along with many other Caribbean islands, are suffering from a variety of environmental challenges. This includes rising sea levels, which threaten to flood or possibly sink these islands, as well as sand mining, hotel constructions, and waste deposits from yachts and other private and public entities. In all, over 700 species and natural habitats such as coral reefs are in danger. With that, I'd like to introduce Obaid and Dieter with their trip to Jamaica over the summer.
Hello, everyone. During the past summer, the boys varsity soccer team had the privilege of traveling to Kingston, Jamaica. We traveled with a tour company called Global Soccer Ministries, whose main goal is to immerse different cultures through soccer. We played 4 games against local teams, and we experienced their different play styles. They were really fast and extremely technical, and we had to adjust a bit because it's not like what we see here in Chicago. And it was a great opportunity to experience different styles. Aside from playing soccer, we did some humanitarian work, such as visiting a local orphanage. Visiting the orphanage was truly a life-changing experience. It makes us realize what we take for granted here. And a lot of the things that we think of as necessities are actually rare luxuries. We had a lot of fun playing soccer and basketball with them, but also learning about how they grew up. And I know I'm speaking for the whole team when I say we left the orphanage with a different outlook on life.
In addition to soccer and community service, we also did some sightseeing where we were exposed to the Jamaican culture. One of the biggest figures, as Dr. Stratwick said, it was Bob Marley. So we visited his museum, where afterwards we ended up going to a local market, and at every shop there was a Bob Marley shirt or whatever. So that kind of shows how big of a figure it is in Jamaica. Soccer is almost everywhere in Jamaica as well. When we went to the beach, we played a friendly game of soccer with the locals. It is like soccer was the language to bond with them. One of the things I noticed most about Jamaica was their pride in their country, especially when we were down there during the Olympics. On the last night, we went to a restaurant. We ate Jamaican festivals, which is kind of combination of, I would say, a churro and a normal bread. Very good, as Andrew Ryder, he ate a lot. Well, that really, on the restaurant, they were playing the Olympics, and Jamaican runners, they were winning, and that really showed like how much pride they had, because when they won, they would just get up and cheer, and they played Jamaican music, and they would like cheer and dance. It was like a great environment that I loved. This trip gave us a preview for the Head of Symposium, because we learned a lot about Jamaican culture. We saw what the real city was, not just a tourist spot. We experienced how they lived day to day. In addition, we were exposed to the poverty and how the government is trying to help them. For example, they're funding the orphanages we visited. We witnessed a lot about how truly like people in Jamaica live, rather than just where we normally, people like us, go for vacation. Thank you, and thank you to everyone that made this trip possible. It was truly an experience that we will never forget. Now I would like to show you a video.
Jamaica, me nah sell out. Them try clip we wings, somehow we can't fly out. But when we there yard, nothing nice like Jamaica. Roast breadfruit and banana. Under the tree with a glass of lemonade. Jumping at the river when me ready for bed. No boy can't buy me out. Me no foreign minded, no way compared to Jamaica. Jamaica love, we wanna feel Jamaica love. Everybody wanna visit Jamaica. Jamaica love, Jamaica. Jamaica love, we wanna see Jamaica love. The one that represent the citizens of Jamaica. Jamaica love, Jamaica.
Jamaica, nice country to be. Very friendly people. Very nice cultures, food is great, nice place to come.
The goal of GSM, in my opinion, is probably to expose the team which goes with GSM to the different cultures and people within each specific country through soccer.
GSM is in Jamaica, presently in Jamaica, working on to going to Haiti. We now in Guatemala, where we build a couple facilities.
GSM, Global Soccer Ministry, it's all about trying to change kids' life. We have a tour that we do. We invite teams down come down, have a good time, share fellowship with the kids.
I think this trip has really related back to some of the pillars we have at LFA, especially character. We visited an orphanage and we got to meet a lot of kids who just grew up without their parents, and you know how happy they still were, and you know how different they grew up than from us.
LFA, I think, prides itself on the diversity of the student body, and I think to be able to see another culture this week in Jamaica was extremely valuable to me.
One of the biggest things I noticed from playing against them is how friendly they were on the pitch. It was competitive and we had a great time playing each other.
Being a defender, I'm usually stuck with the forwards up top, and those guys are pretty fast. I don't know if it's because I've had too many Jamaican festivals or if it's or I'm just slow, but these guys tend to really just fly by me and I'm chasing after them a lot of the time.
Okay, so my favorite moment about this trip was definitely the team bonding that we had. It wasn't just on the pitch playing soccer, but also off the pitch.
It's probably how well treated we are by our GSM guides, Boris and Greg.
Thank you to everyone who made this trip possible. It's an experience we'll never forget.
Okay, hi guys. We went on a trip this spring break, or last spring break, to Cuba. So first, our group went to Miami, and there we saw an outdoor art exhibition in South Beach that represented the Cuban influence in Miami. I'm sorry, I'm sick. I sound really weird right now. Then afterwards, we flew to Havana, and we met children at a community art center. They really focus on the arts like music and dance and design and architecture. And then we went to the Bienales Valley, and there we focused on nature and architecture. I mean agriculture. The owners and the workers at the ranches and homesteads talked about Cuban communities and how they work together to have their own organic food and natural resources. We also learned the importance of tobacco and how they make cigars. In Cienfuegos and also in Havana, we learned the importance of tourism in Cuba. We went to a lot of natural beaches, and we learned that Cuba is a very big tourist destination for many European and Asian countries. Our last place that we visited was Trinidad, where we went to one of the oldest plantations in the world. Trinidad is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of the amount of African slaves that were brought to Cuba to work on that one large plantation.
All right. Okay, so one of the most interesting things that I figured out from our tour guide, he said that the average person in Cuba got like 30 cuca a month, which like then equal to $30 in American money, you know, so that's pretty, whoa. And the people there were like very friendly and very nice. Even, I mean, some people had like different initiatives onto why, like money, but you know. But other than that, the food there was really good. Even though when people try to give you the best, it was mostly the same thing, but it was tasty. And when Tenny's talked about that school that we went to, they made us dance and sing, and they gave us a lot of guava juice as complimentary like drinks, and so that was tasty. And the tour guide always talked about how Cuba is grateful for the sacrifice of African slaves and the indigenous who died during the slavery when Spain like did this stuff, right?
Personally, I would say, on behalf of everyone that went, that it was a really big transition from going to a place like Miami to Cuba. Cuba's not necessarily a very modern place, so when me and the other people in our group walked around, we all kind of noticed that it really needed to be renovated. It looked like we were basically going back into the time, you know, you see all the cars from the 50s, and it just seems like you're in a different age. I didn't really know what to expect personally going, especially when we had the opportunity to interact with people from Cuba and speak in Spanish. It helped me really practice my Spanish, and I realized that I understood more of the language than I actually thought I did. Also, it caught me off guard that the people were so friendly to us Americans. With the embargo, I thought that Cubans would not necessarily be as open to Americans there, but after talking to them, I realized that the
Enrique Iglesias, gente de zona, de Seme.
Yo te miro y se me corta la respiración. Cuando tú me miras se me sube el corazón. Me palpita lento el corazón. Y en un silencio tu mirada dice 1000 palabras. La noche en la que te suplico que no salga el sol.
Bailando, 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 bailando. Tu cuerpo y el mío llenando el vacío, subiendo y bajando. Subiendo y bajando. Bailando, 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 bailando. Ese fuego por dentro me está enloqueciendo, me va saturando.
Con tu física y tu química, también tu anatomía, la cerveza y el tequila y tu boca con la mía. Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más. Con esta melodía, tu color, tu fantasía, con tu filosofía, mi cabeza está vacía. Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo una noche loca,
una noche loca.
Ay, besar tu boca. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo una noche loca, con tremenda nota. Tú me miras y me llevas a otra dimensión. Tus latidos aceleran a mi corazón. Tus latidos aceleran a mi corazón. Qué ironía del destino no poder tocarte, abrazarte y sentir la magia de tu olor. Física y tu química, también tu anatomía, la cerveza y el tequila y tu boca con la mía. Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más. Con esta melodía, tu color, tu fantasía, con tu filosofía, mi cabeza está vacía. Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo una noche loca,
una noche loca.
Ay, besar tu boca. Yo quiero estar contigo.
Our next speakers.
Thank you. I got you. Hey, guys. So my name is Matt Nink, and I'm the director of GYLI and the Stewart Center for Global Leadership. It's my great pleasure to be one of the co-chairs of the Head of School Symposium Committee this year with Mark Copestake from the admissions, who's traveling for admissions right now. Otherwise, he'd be here. So if you enjoyed some of those scenes from Jamaica and Cuba, I want to invite you all to consider joining us in March of 2017 in Haiti and DR. I could talk forever about both of these places. We've done a number of programs there in the past, both programs just for teachers as well as some for teachers and students. And both of these countries have incredible rich histories and great people and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to walk you through some of them. So it'll be the Saturday of spring break, March 18th through the 29th, about 12 days there. We'll be going first to Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. You see it's right there. There are flights every day from Santo Domingo to JFK. It's a 4-hour flight direct, and it's literally, really America's neighbor. This is where we'll be going, starting in Santo Domingo on the bottom, and then over to Barahona. Barahona is a Haitian bate. So like other countries that we could compare to, the DR and Haiti have an interesting migrant worker situation. So there are about 3 million Haitian workers in the Dominican Republic many of whom are undocumented, and this is an ongoing immigration issue there. So connecting us to last year's Head of School Symposium. They originally came to work in the sugarcane fields and built these collectives called bateys and have stayed. So many folks have been born there, and there are schools and all sorts of things. So one of the really interesting things is the interplay between these two countries. While we're looking at the map, I'll also just say that the DR is the only country, maybe there's others, but one that I know of, in the Western Hemisphere that declares its independence from another country in the Western Hemisphere, which is Haiti in 1844. So there's really a lot to talk about in terms of history, culture, climate, all that sort of stuff. So we'll be starting in Santo Domingo and then Barahona, and then going up the central corridor of the DR called the Duarte Corridor. Jarabacoa is this beautiful mountain town. We'll be going to a women's cooperative, then over into Haiti to Cape Haitian, a fantastic historical city, and ending in Puerto Plata. I'll show you some more photos here. What are our goals? So what we want to do in this is have a lot of fun. If you know me, those people that do, I'm a very funny guy. I tell a lot of jokes. I enjoy moving. That's how I learn, by doing things. That's why I think travel is so important. I'm very good looking. I'm a lot of fun. So it's gonna be a great experience. So what we're going to do is, first of all, engage and connect. This is about people, not just the history and not just the locations. We want to engage with as many people as possible across different ages, races, class, really have good conversations. So we're going to be meeting college students, batey workers. They've got all these MLB camps, which are really interesting. High school students, little kids, elementary school students. We got to reflect on the legacy. Everything in the Western Hemisphere that came through Europe came through the Caribbean. So we've got to look at some of these issues of slave plantations and role of women and LGBT rights and all these kinds of things. And what are those legacies that still exist today, right? We want to talk about the income and the gender pay gap here in the US. How is it in the DR? So it's a constant comparison between where we are, where we're trying to go, and this is our history. This is where we've been. And then we're going to do stuff. We're going to experience. We're going to do some service work. We're going to play some sports. We're going to play some baseball in the DR. We're going to play some soccer in Haiti. We're going to go to some agriculture areas, business, government, religion, all sorts of things. So let's start in Santo Domingo, the colonial city over there on the left. That cathedral dates to 1502. What they call the first street in the Americas. So everything the first in the Americas is essentially in Santo Domingo. There's lots of other places that you've seen on some of these other photos, but this is the first place that got all collected. And again, this is primarily Spanish influence. This colonial zone is so intact, and our main guide and friend, hopefully he's going to come here and speak. We're just working on the date. His name is Joaquin Mendez. He owns a building in the colonial zone, which is both a museum to Caribbean religions and museum to Caribbean music. So he's very familiar with all these different interplays between the different cultures. UNIBE is one of the best medical schools in the Caribbean, so we'll be talking to some of the medical students there. They've also got a transformative, fantastic women's rights and women's initiative. One of the professors there is a good friend of ours, Lucy Araya. She's done work in Israel and in the DR on the role of women and women's voice and human rights, so she'll be talking to us as well. In the mountain towns, as I said, Jarabacoa, we'll be staying at this women's cooperative. I could talk all day just about this. So Ivelisse and Esperanza. Ivelisse is the mom, Esperanza is the daughter. They started this about 25 years ago to build economic empowerment. So a group of women representing about 250 families in this valley, constantly trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And they first started off with sort of rafting along the river there, the Yaqui River, which you can kind of see in the background. And that didn't work out too well for lots of reasons, which we'll explain. So then they built these cabins. So they have like an eco lodge and a retreat center there where we'll be staying. And again, just beautiful, right along the Yaqui River. And these women are just entrepreneurs, they're innovators, they're inventors. They've got a greenhouse, they've got a water filtration system that they created themselves. They host visitors from all over the world. They've gotten funding from the government of Canada, the government of the US. They're just fantastic role models of patient, persistent community building. We'll be hiking to this waterfall, which is fantastic. And then in Santiago is the Leon Center. Again, a fantastic collection of Caribbean history as well as Dominican history. Things like the first Dominican expedition to Mount Everest, Dominican Olympic teams. They've got a great collection of both history and current stuff happening in the DR at the Leon Center. Then we'll be making the trip further north into Haiti. You see the cathedral that was on the front slide down there on the lower left. Cape Haitian This is just a fantastic. This place was the capital, back and forth between Port-au-Prince. It's really maintained its culture and its art and its presence more so than other cities in Haiti, even after the 2010 earthquake. This is a very recent photo from 2014, so you can see that it did not suffer the devastation that a lot of places in the South did. So we'll be going there, and again, schools, nonprofit organizations, women's cooperatives, government officials, really looking at comparative government. How is Haiti governed versus how DR is governed versus lots of other places. And then we end in the north coast of the Dominican Republic. Mariposa Foundation is a great book that will be, those of you that are signing up, I'll be encouraging you to read, called In the Time of the Butterflies by a woman named Julia Alvarez. And it talks about the DR during the dictator Trujillo and his span of time, again, with a lot of funding and support from the United States, believe it or not. We actually invaded and controlled the DR on a couple of different occasions, so we'll be talking about that. So Mariposa Foundation was set up really to empower women and girls and help them build their economic development, educational opportunities, operates on the north coast in Puerto Plata. We'll also do some surfing lessons since we've been working so hard throughout the rest of the trip on Kite Beach and enjoy ourselves. It's fantastic. So what do you need to do? Applications are ready, and you can come and get one from me in the Stewart Center. There is financial aid available for this trip because it's a head of school symposium trip. I would love to have those applications ready by October 1st, and you know, we can take a pretty healthy group of students and teachers on this trip, and we can divide it and do different things at different times. So if you're interested, you want to see a lot more photos, I have gazillions from the many programs we've done in DR and Haiti. And again, one of the speakers will be coming. Any questions on that, specifically on the HOS trip, that I could answer right now for everybody? Looking at my timing here. No questions at all? I can't see that well up here. Great. While I'm here, then I'll just say a couple other two quick plugs. First of all, we have created a evaluation tool, a Google form, for any global program that you might have done. We're talking to a senior who came into the Stewart Center yesterday and said, hey, did this great program in Europe. I'd love to tell you about it. Like, yeah, please, let's sit and talk, but also really want to get data on that. So we're going to be sending that out by email to everybody. It's, we just created it, so we may have some glitches. It's very short, only 13 questions. So if you did any program that you would call global experience or experiential ed in the last 12 months, they want you to fill this out. And over the next 12 months, and the next 12 months after that. One of the key questions for us is what sticks 6 months later. So we go on an experience, we see some great photos, we have a good time, you hear from your peers, oh, that was really transformative. Well, why? What are the components of transformative? What does that mean? How do we take that with us as we go forward? So one of the questions we're most interested in asking you and having you really think about and reflect on is what sticks 6 months later? What sticks 8 months later? You had that experience, how do you apply that now? So of the 13 questions, there are 2 questions related to application and what sticks with you now. We also have one for faculty as well. So any program that you might have done, please fill out that link. We'll be constantly making this plug. Secondly, if you're interested in anything, you want to go do something in XYZ location on a specific topic, right? You wanted to learn more about different ones that we may know about. That's why we're there in the Stewart Center, to help you find great programs that help you become a stronger global citizen and achieve these 4 pillars. Some of that can happen here at the great Lake Forest Academy, but a lot of the reason we do these is because our full education has to happen sometimes outside of the walls of a classroom. So, awesome. Thank you, guys. And with that, all school meeting is dismissed.
Get hot.